To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4 to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win, weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
So hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets the crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
You go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall, and we are post the first NXL event of the 2022 season. Lo and behold, San Diego Dynasty has summoned the spirit yet again to vanquish all comers and emerge triumphant. Big congratulations to Ryan Greenspan and the boys. We have Ryan Greenspan here on the show today. In a little bit, we will also have their coach, Kevin Bredthauer, joining us as well, too. But so not only did Dynasty win yet again, 3rd event in a row. So, we're going to dive into this, but Ryan Greenspan won the overall MVP, kind of like he did at World Cup, by doing the same thing, going up and killing people in the center. So we're going to be breaking all this down. But Ryan, I just want to throw this stat at you, which I'm sure you kind of already know this, but you do know that the last time, I'm looking at all my crazy notes here, the last time that you guys lost in a game, period, was like 10 months ago or something like that. I mean, it's been 3 whole events since you guys have lost a game, which is crazy. How you feeling?
No, that is a crazy stat. And actually, Matty, Alex had mentioned that to us before, like at the event randomly. And I was like, ugh. And I think I told Tom Cole that before we went to the finals or the semifinals, which is a horrible thing to do because I hate saying that sort of stuff. Jinx yourself. So who knows, it's a great run. And, it's something that I'm just really proud of everybody on the team. I'm really glad that the run that we're doing is happening now in this day and age with everything that had happened. And on top of that, because it kind of silences some of those haters, because there's a couple guys, there's a lot of people, actually not a couple, there's a handful of people out there, a lot.
Always going to be haters, brother.
Who never really gave us the full credit from back in our last big run with Dynasty. Everybody's like, oh, well, but you never were playing in the NXL, or you weren't playing with the big boys, or you never played against Aftershock or Ironman or All A's or Philly, All Americans, when you guys were winning all those tournaments. So there's people that are so it's so Dynasty in 2007 wasn't technically, do you count all those wins? I'm like, yeah, man, I won a tournament in Guatemala. I'm counting that.
What? All right. Well, the Guatemala one, I mean, I'll begrudgingly give you a whatever win you want, but look, let's just start there and have this conversation for all the haters or whoever doesn't seem, or for the uninitiated, whatever it may be. But look, I was there for all that. And one of the reasons I have my job is that, I go back, I was there, fought at the highest. I fought against you guys at your prime. I've seen you guys now rejuvenating yourselves. And I feel like I can speak with some sort of authority about this. I actually had this argument because when Impact was on the run, and I remember we were arguing kind of back and forth about, okay, well, who is the greatest paintball team ever based on era? But if we do track back a little bit and we could kind of discuss a little bit. I don't want to, dwell too much on this, but kind of just from like a historical standpoint to build a little bit of the foundation. When Dynasty, when you guys, so in 2000, 2001, and, as you guys were forming that whole Iron Kids, you guys are going to be doing Iron Kids documentaries filming right now. So people will be able to kind of see the origin story of this a bit. But when you guys came in there before the split of the league and you guys won that World Cup, first of all, let's just start there. Everyone was there who wasn't at that World Cup. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so right out the gate, like that's a good part to kind of go on with your argument. I was there at that. I watched all that go down, and say what you will about that controversial win, but it was a win nonetheless. And that was with everybody there. And yeah, sure, you guys ran up, a bunch of wins in the NPPL when we were kind of all stuck in the NXL at the time. Again, longer conversation there. But who could begrudge you that? If I had to go back and do that again, I probably wouldn't have done, got to try to sign that TV contract deal in that situation, because nothing came to fruition off of that. And that's, again, longer conversation. That's for another podcast at another time. But just again, to kind of set the foundation. But then when, excessive and infamous and, teams started to peel off to go and try to fight you guys. So there we were at the height of our powers, trying to build a team to beat you guys. And Infus came in. It was a good three-way rivalry. And then we all joined up again. You guys still did win a World Cup once everyone joined back together, 8 years ago or whatever it was. This is before this current run. But what I think makes this current run so outstanding is, one, you are on the precipice of potentially, setting a record with, if you guys could pull off that fourth win with the Tribes United and with all the best players, with how ridiculously competitive things are getting. And I would like to go into some numbers. And again, we're going to get Skinny Kevin on here in a bit. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of set that. I think that's goddamn ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Just based on what, on what the actual history of that is. The asterisk there is all those wins you guys got in the NPPL are playing against essentially the Tauntauns and the Naughty Dogs. And while the rest of us were stuck in limbo out, into the abyss of media, because there was, no one was covering that at the time. Anyway, so there's your little asterisk. Other than that, Dynasty's been competing against, the best and the brightest since the origin of the team, again, other than that 3-year period or whatever. So anyway, that's my kind of like little historical exclamation point on that. What do you think? Obviously, you're probably gonna be like, hell yeah, bro.
Yeah, dude, that was as good as that was a great explanation, and you got our back, so I appreciate that.
Well, have your back, because it's just the truth, dude. It's just the truth, man. That's as begrudgingly as yes, I do have a soft spot in my heart for you guys. I've never actually played on Dynasty, but again, you got to think. I've said this before. I will continue to repeat myself, because it's so important. And when you get to the end of the road, you really have to think, because we're not playing for blood here, playing for a little bit of money, playing for a lot of pride, some great stories, and to have this, exclamation point in your life. But it being that as is may here is that you really need to thank your antagonists, thank your enemies, because if you don't have strong enemies, you never know how good you actually could be. If you're a really good paintball player and you go you're beating the living shit out of people that aren't as good as you, that may make you feel better, even though it shouldn't. But you don't really know how strong you are until you're tested. So I'm glad that you guys are around to test us, so you could bring the best out of us. We could bring the best out of you guys. And that's why I kind of want to get and talk a little bit about, the league, and we'll bring Kevin on, Skinny Kevin as well, to talk a little bit about that. But I just think this run is pretty amazing considering how competitive it is. Let's just, because obviously I want to get, all your thoughts on this specific tournament. So let's just kind of talk through your trajectory in this tournament here. You guys were in the bracket of death with X Factor, Revo, the Latin Saints, and Energy Elite. And we kind of spoke a little bit about this, but just, now that it's passed, what were your, honest opinion about being in that bracket leading into the event and when it was about to go down?
Well, it's actually funny, Matty, that bracket of death kind of developed to become that bracket of death. Originally, I was on the call with everybody when we were doing the brackets sometime in the beginning of the season, because Jason wanted to do something, so that way the commissioner Jason wanted to do something, so that way everybody could start scheduling practices. And Brandon Short and I were both like texting back and forth, because the first team that we drew, it was Dynasties at the top of the bracket, and then we drew Latin Saints. I was like, ha ha, like, this will be fun. we're just kind of talking trash back and forth. And then all of a sudden they started poaching guys and getting new teams and building it up where it was going to be us, Revo, and X Factor. It was going to be like, okay, who are the three of us that are going to make it out? Then, as it turns out, Latin Saints get, massively big with their budgets and picking up all those guys. But what that did is the ripple effect that had on the league kind of balanced a lot out, which is what I'm really excited for in this season. And thankfully, Marcelo didn't go. Marcelo had that offer and he kind of molded over a little bit and just decided that sticking with the good guys is the way to go. And Dynasty and believing in what we have and sacrificing quite a bit to do that, but he sees the vision that we have and which may at this point be kind of a blind vision because we've been doing it for so long. But no, hats off to Marcelo for sticking on with us. So we didn't lose anybody. And I mean, we were arguably the best team in the world going into this season. And then we pick up one of the best guys in the league, Archie. So what did everybody think was going to happen was what Rusty said. But yeah, the ripple effect that it had across the league was, now we're like, okay, Latin Saints are going to be pretty good. Impact took a big hit. But then Impact goes and poaches some guys from Revo, and now Revo, who was kind of like a top contender, dropped down a couple of notches. And so,
sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry, Siri. So it was the ripple effect that the Latin Saints pickups had across the board, making changing Impact's roster, changing Revo's roster, and then kind of how that dissipated, and then X Factor losing Archie obviously hurt them a bit, and yeah, man, it's a very interesting, that bracket of death was very interesting. And we had very close matches. All of our matches were pretty close, except for the Latin Saints, surprisingly.
Yeah. There's a lot there. There's so many different, it was interesting on a lot of levels, but just to stay on that kind of bracket of death conversation, is that, it was already a tough bracket because of how good, Revo was last year, and obviously how consistent San Antonio X Factor is historically, getting to Sunday, being a big rival of yours most recently because you guys had met them in the finals 3 times. You beat them every single time, but they were always there. And then, you guys, you pick up Archie, big coup in the offseason. That was kind of like one of the first big ones before the Saints started to go huge and kind of steal at least the story afterwards, because everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe Archie went to Dynasty. And, and that was kind of set the paintball universe on fire. And then all of a sudden the Saints just go big and start, hacking away at Impact's roster and the Ironman's roster. And then one of the big things too, it was kind of on the DL a bit before, but then the news did get out because, how are you going to hide it? But there was a little hit. But it brings in the story of how you ended up winning the MVP, which I would like to get to before we bring Kevin on. We'll bring Kevin on in maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so. But is that Blake Yarber almost cuts his thumb off. So, and Blake was such a savage beast for you guys last year, and such, I feel, a big part of the offensive, dynamic that you guys were bringing to bear, and really making teams play a lot on their heels, because you guys just had, every team at the top level has a lot of weapons, but, the creative brutality that Blake was bringing to the center, the craftiness that Marcelo was bringing with the offense that, you and Marcelo would both have offense. And then what we saw out of Urena and Frazier again, and Yosha's consistency, and then throw in, everyone else. And it was just like, wow, this is obviously an incredibly tough team to beat, because again, you guys have not lost a game now. Last event, undefeated. World Cup, undefeated. Event number 4 or 3 last year in Chicago, undefeated. You have to go all the way back to the second event last year where you guys lost in the semifinals by 4 to Houston Heat. That was the last time that you guys lost a game. And again, just because of all those weapons. But, you guys, maybe, just some thoughts on losing Blake to a crazy thumb, axe injury. And then how long until we see Blake back, at least at a capacity where he can play. I know he didn't want to play at this event because he's crazy like that and tough, and he's a tough son of a bitch. But
yeah, tough is an understatement. He was just so positive and like thought the whole thing was funny. He's just like, oh guys, look at this. Like, whoa, and he's like, the first doctor said I'm going to lose it. So I think we got to drive down to the city. If the local veterinarian said that, he wasn't going to be able to save it. So I think we have to go to an actual city and doctor and see if they're going to be able to sew it back together. I'm like, Blake, are you in shock or what's going on here? And he's like, yeah, what else can you do except for laugh at it, which is true, but that's what I always say, Matty, is like, for every bad thing that happens, you just got to make it as comical as possible. So with the exception of death and serious dismemberment, and while his thumb was dismembered, it was still hanging on by a little bit of skin. So, you make it laughable. And it's like, what am I going to do? Chop my thumb off. Like, let's just embrace it. And hopefully someone can sew it back together.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
That was definitely a big blow to the team, but luckily we're a very deep roster, a deep team. The tricky thing is filling Blake's shoes, right? That's where, if you lose your stud in any position, and he was your go-to guy, it's like, all right, who's going to fill this spot? So, and Kevin kind of like throws everybody, like a handful of us around. Like Mikey plays the snake side. That's where Mikey plays. Dalton plays the Dorito side. That's kind of like, those are your two shoe-ins. And now Blake is our center guy. And now we just kind of, everybody else floats around and fits in. Arturo played incredibly well on that Dorito side and was also playing really well on the snake side and the center in practice. And so, Kevin doesn't just keep the other teams guessing with our, with the strategy and with how versatile the teams are. Like, I literally had no clue I was playing the center until a couple points in of the New York Extreme match, or sorry, practice on Thursday. Like, you're playing the middle. Okay, great. Play the Dorito side the whole, mostly the time, 80% in practice. So, but that's the faith that Kevin has as a coach and in all the guys, is like, he wants us to be as versatile as possible, because in case someone's thumb falls off, we got to have guys that can play the middle, and so in practice, like, everybody was jumping around and playing all these spots, because you never know, like, I could stub my toe and my toe might fall off. Who knows?
Well, so, okay, just, again, we will bring Kevin Bredthauer in here in just a bit, but to get his thoughts on this as well too. But, before we do get to that, got a couple more things I'd like to get your thoughts on before we bring him in, and we can kind of have like a roundtable conversation about it. So, it was, again, tough to kind of figure out exactly who deserved the MVP, because going into the finals, because so many, Kevin was rotating guys through spots. Some guys had really big moments in certain games. I mean, even yourself, you're in a kind of a treacherous position where sometimes you're going to get run down. There was the Joe Barrett pod throw trick that you fell for, which was a super crafty thing on, on Joe's part. But
dude, that's our trick. It's a lesson on BKI. There's a master class on what to do with your pods, basically, on BKI. So he obviously subscribes to it. So I want to give a shameless plug to BKI right now. Like, we're turning players into pros, and it's literally, you know what I mean? So
did you, well, just real quick, did you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. So like that night before, I'm always like thinking about, because in the middle, you got all these different options. And it's like, when someone asked me, like, when do you know to run up to the 50 brick? I'm like, I don't know, dude. It's just kind of like, you just change it up every so often. Some guys always go up there. Some guys go over there sometimes. Sometimes they stay in the tower. It's really no big rhyme or reason to it. But what's funny is, thinking about, like, you're always thinking about ways to evolve and like kind of come up with different options and ideas. And the night before, I was literally thinking about the pod trick. I'm like, dude, I could for sure throw it here, because Kyle and I always joke about doing the pod trick, and we say it in practice sometimes, like, oh, you're in the snake, just throw the pod up to this thing, and for sure the guy's going to come around. So it's not really like an old trick. And I think there was one event, Matty, where people were doing it pretty consistently into that 50 brick. Maybe it was like in a Chicago.
A couple years ago.
It was a Chicago.
It was like 2019 Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, but does anybody fall for it? And I did. But I'll also joke, like, okay, you got me, but we won the tournament. I'll bunker a pod every single point and get destroyed and I'll become a meme. I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. And I think it was great, because I came around and bunkered. I was like, oh, what the hell happened? Where'd he go? And then I just see the pod on the ground as my ears are ringing. But
so, yeah.
Also,
so hold on just real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on just real quick. Did you know that, because during the replay, as we were calling we cut, I saw it go down. Like, I happen to be watching that exact, moment when you're up there, because, who gets to the center and what happens at that. Anyway, It was just, my eyes were there, and we all, and the cameras were there. It all got caught perfectly. I see him throw the pod, and I see you go, and then we cut to that angle, and then I see you get shot, and then you kind of turn around, like you said, as your ears are ringing, and you're shaking your head, like, and it just seemed like that you knew what had just happened. Did you know at the time that was what had happened?
Oh yeah, right away, right? Because okay, so I knew we were calling that bunker the America, and I knew he was in there because he was shooting. There's only specific lanes you can see, right? And he was keeping Alex stuck in that little Dorito. So Alex was yelling at these in the America, but I was in that 50. I was in that brick, and all of a sudden the bunker moves, and that's a pretty good indication, obviously, with the exception of this one time, that a guy just went into it. So
yeah,
and generally what I'll do is I'll wait on the lane and try to catch somebody and then go get the guy. But I knew that he was holding up Alex, and the last thing I wanted to do was, because there's a really sneaky move into that brick, is when you're holding someone in that little Dorito, if you move up into that brick and they don't see you do that, you can just kind of lean off of it, and you can still protect that 50 Dorito structure. And so that's one thing that I could see Alex getting tricked on also, because I've done it to those guys, is, you know, he's kind of battling with and I can hear Alex screaming, "Oh, yeah, I'm in the loader, check his loader." And I'm looking over at Alex, he's pointing, he's going nuts back there. I could see Joe, you know, putting Alex in, moving up into there, and then Alex kind of thinks he switched him a little bit and then takes off. So as soon as that thing hit, like I said, usually I'll wait, try to get a kill across the field, and then quickly do a little mick pick too. This instance, I was like, I'm just going to get him off the field so Alex doesn't get stung, because I don't want him to get two guys. Yeah. And right when I went around the corner, I shot the dirt 3 times, and I was like, and then I started getting blown up because I was looking for a second kill. And then I looked back at the ground, and there was the pod. I was like, okay.
He got me.
But it was funny because I was thinking about that the night before. Sorry, Matty. I was thinking about that the night before. So one good thing about my talking about, I was like, okay, this is a good move. And then I found another move when we were playing X Factor in one of those long points, and I showed it to Archie. I'm like, dude, Archie, check this out. Like, this is going to work at one of these points. Like, if you come up through these pins, you can block out the guys on the snake side and the America and the you know, these other bunkers, and you can take out the middle guys or kind of make a good move up here. And Archie ended up using that move. So I got to give myself an assist on that one. Just for after the blunder up the middle. Well,
it was, you know, look, it was an incredibly interesting layout. We had a ton of close games, lots of overtimes. I mean, it was a wild field. We had upsets. If you kind of look at the plus minuses and the and how tight it was, you know, getting all the way down into, you know, even X Factor taking 16th place, but there was a lot of really close games, and so a decent amount of points played as well. And so, you know, with just to kind of finish up talking about why I feel that you justifiably won that MVP, is that I feel if you weigh the entire weight of work that everybody did on the team and kind of, you know, and how crucial certain spots were, but, you know, it's like every single one of your guys, and of course, you don't go undefeated and win yet another tournament if you don't get contributions from essentially everyone that's going to take the field at some point in time, or they just won't get out there. Like that, if you have a team, any dominant team, any elite team, especially a team that's deep, you're not really going to get a lot of like free points just because they're trying to get you, you know, some spins. You know, maybe if you have a huge lead, but because, like you said, you guys were in some wars, and I mean, pretty much all the teams were in wars. Anyway, so I just felt that, you know, Marcelo got the finals MVP. He had a couple clutch points to kind of set the precedent and give you guys a little bit of that, a little space in the beginning. But just overall, throughout the entire time, you know, Dalton was definitely in the conversation as well too. He played very well on that D side. You know, everyone did. Again, every single person that took the field for Dynasty. I mean, even Arturo and Yoshin, you know, they weren't playing every single point, but they had some really clutch spins out there. So again, just I felt that the fact you're playing in Blake's spot essentially, because now Blake, you know, dropped his finger off. Somebody has to be that creative person up the center. And then we even played this one montage of all, it was a highlight reel essentially of you running up the center, and it was just relentless again, you know. So when put to the task, you just are, you know, you go to war in that center. And I just felt, yeah, you know, and then I checked with Skinny. We'll talk to him a little bit too, right afterwards. But I just think it was just an amazing performance. It's so inspiring. You know, certain things are inspiring in our sport, to have the Hurricanes come in, you know, right out the gate, winning and doing it the hard way, and coming into pro, winning. You're not winning any events, but, you know, earning the overall title in semi-pro to earn it the pro spot the hard way. And then they win their very first game. They ended up taking 14th overall. It was the only game they won, but they shut out Uprising and beat them in a mercy rule in their very first pro game, which is, I mean, that's inspiring to see the ML Kings, get as good as they are. Now, they made their second Sunday in a row. They took 10th, and they only went 2-2, but they lost by 1 to Aftermath, to see Aftermath's improvement. So, again, there's a lot of these inspiring stories, as we go and, cascade down the ranks. But I think that the Dynasty story right now is so fascinating because it's proving that you can do this at the highest level possible, at 40 years old. It's a really cool thing. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, Alex,
kind of before we kind of start. Wait, why was? Well, oh, okay, yes. You explain why Alex.
He held
pissed.
the record for the oldest Golden Barrel or MVP winner, and now he's like, that's why he's like, Ryan doesn't deserve it. Take it back, like recount, because I just dethroned him. But maybe that's going to be inspiration for him to get on his stationary bike and beef up those legs and get back into the snake and make it easier for everybody else. I mean, that event that he had, he won was I mean, easily a magnificent performance compared to what I did. I was just running up the middle and getting shot in the back of the ear 1,000 times. It was like I was just basically banging my head against the wall. Sure, I was shooting guys and holding lanes and kind of a bridge of communication. But what Alex did in Chicago was pretty awesome. I mean, he got the iconic move of the year. He won the MVP there, undoubtedly. And it wasn't like, what do you think, Chris? What do you think? There was no. You didn't have to ask anybody. And that's why,
I mean, we were,
like,
you're like, it's Alex. You were like, it's Alex, right? And I'm like, yeah, 100% it's Alex. Well, I mean, that one was, because, of course, if you go back and watch that finals game, we got to make it a little dramatic. So we're definitely bringing other names into the conversation as well, too. But yeah, and as soon as I threw it out to the paintball world, like, hey man, if you're a buddy of mine and you got my number and you're watching this right now, let me know who you think it should be. And literally, I got 15 or 20 text messages within 5 minutes of that game, and it was maybe more than that. And it was just like almost, it was 99%. It's got to be Alex. It's got to be Alex. But like World Cup, this one, and this is what I just think is interesting, but it's showing the, kind of the confidence and the evolution of the attack of San Diego Dynasty right now, is that going back to World Cup, and when we gave a co-MVP to Blake and Marcelo, and even going back and doing and rewatching all of those games multiple times on Sunday to create 4 Sundays, which you guys can go check that out right now. The last episode dropped before the event. It just bodes so well for a team like you guys. If even going back, I'm like, man, it's really hard to try to figure out, even on a second or third, fourth, fifth watch in some of those points to see like, okay, well, it was more Marcelo or was more Blake, because both of those positions were so incredibly crucial to the overall success. So it was just really cool. And then here, this time it was a similar situation, though, when Alex won his MVP and we were about to go down to give it to him, you had come up ahead of time. And even before had announced it, or like we were going down to do it, you're like, it's Alex, right? It's Alex. I'm like, yeah, it's Alex. But when I came down and I'm like, hey, Ryan, I got to see you. And then Alex was like, you're going to give it to Ryan?
Yeah. Everybody on the team was mad. Jeez.
Hey, it's a Shark Tank over there, dude. Survivor Island, bro. Really, it is. It really is.
But yeah, we got a full crew. We can almost field an entire team now with these golden barrels.
Yeah, and also this time, and we're gonna try to keep this going. But you got the golden barrel from Carbon, and you got a $500 check from Bunker King. So that's pretty.
Let's
tight
go.
Too.
Yeah. Where's that? Who do I got the fake one, but the bank wouldn't honor it. So I don't know.
I mean, I'll do some digging. Don't worry, we'll get you paid. But yeah, that's that's someone else's department. But if I got to do it, I'll do it for you, brother. I will do it for you. But yeah, no, so we're gonna bring in SK here in a little bit, but for this run that you guys are on, I mean, realistically, with how good the rest of the league is, I mean, do you think that there is? I mean, and I want to get Kevin's thoughts on this too, but right now it's Saints at second place overall. But if you look at your plus minus, even level, Aftermath's a little bit different, impact, heat, and then damage and Legion, there's a big disparity in plus minuses. And what I mean is how many points did you score and how many points did your opponent score? For you guys, again, so your World Cup was a plus 16. You were plus 23 at the third event. Going all the way back, it was a little bit closer at the second event, but whatever, just talking about your wins. But it was similar to World Cup. You guys were at a plus 16, 37 points for and 21 against. You did have some close games, but you would also pad it, like you beat the Saints by 5. You ended up beating the Saints. You beat the Saints by 5 in the prelims. You ended up beating them by 3 in the finals. You did have 2 1-point games to get there versus Damage and Aftermath. But if you go to the Saints at second place, their plus minus is a 0. It's equal. It's 34 points for and 34 points against. Incredibly rare to see a team go that deep in a tournament. And so it's just really kind of interesting. Actually, I think we got Skinny Kevin ready to go here. If we could bring Kevin in, I think this would probably be a good time since we're going to start talking about these other teams and the rest of the league. Skinny, how you doing, brother?
You're looking good, Skinny.
Good. I was busy. I had to get Glenn's kid a present. So,
which kid? He's got 2.
The Wolverine.
Logan, yes, little Logan.
Yeah,
nice. Well, welcome to.
It's pretty sweet. So it just
look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, there we go.
Hot Wheels ramp.
Yeah.
Damn, you're spoiling that child.
Too, so, yeah.
So, how you feeling right now after yet another win here? We're just talking about just how amazing Dynasty is, and it's not even really that hard at this point to talk about how amazing you guys are because you haven't lost a game. You came on to coach the team after Rusty's retirement, and then last year, such a masterful job taking over a team that is notoriously a little bit hard to coach because there's so many elite players and so many guys that have been around forever. Yeah, sure, totally. But
that's the adjective you were looking.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call yourself, Ryan, that's fine, dog. No, you can do.
I was calling the guys on the team geniuses. Not. I mean,
totally.
If you want to give me that, also, I do appreciate that compliment again, Matty. You're so kind.
So Skinny, going back, you guys have not lost a game, not one game for 3 whole events. I mean, you guys are undefeated at this last event.
You totally jinxed us right there.
Yeah,
it just ruined it so bad. So
what am I supposed to do? Not mention the fact this could be history, baby. If you guys go on and win the 4th event, so Damage, yes, Damage won 3 events from 2011 to 2012. It's kind of crazy because that was like the Galveston event, so they had to go to Phoenix and win the event there, and then Heat ended up winning the Phoenix event. So this is kind of different situation, but that was the last time that a team won 3 big events in a row. Now, the fact that and I was asking Ryan about this a little bit earlier, but you've been around for a long time. We played against each other, back in the 90s, and then you were one of the original Dynasty guys, and then you've coached a lot of these top teams. You coach Damage, so you've been doing this and you've seen all this, but I just think that with how competitive the league is getting, and this is a complex conversation because it is different than last year, but this would be an amazing time to win 4 events in a row, considering how good some of these younger teams are getting. And now the Saints are coming in and spending money and building yet another, super team, quote unquote. So this would be a pretty special moment in the history of paintball if you guys could pull off 4 wins in a row. And yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to jinx you, but I'm not doing my damn job if I'm not going back and looking at the statistics and trying to figure out, where we actually are here in this junction as we move forward in the trajectory and the history of the sport. And that's what's at stake. That is what it's at stake right now. And so it's just the fact that, the core guys are either at or over or pushing 40. And then you got these younger guys coming in that are, guys that have now become super paintball famous, like the Mike Urinas. You pick up a Damien, it's about how good Blake's gotten. And then Blake cuts his finger off. You guys still win. It's crazy, man. What are your thoughts? I got a lot of different questions specifically, but just generally, where's your head at right now after this 3rd win in a row?
Well, I mean, I think it's like the team is almost the same as it was at World Cup, except we added Dalton and Archie. So it's like, yeah, we lost Blake, but Dalton didn't play at World Cup. He was hurt. So like, honestly, it wasn't that. I mean, roster-wise, it was not a huge difference. I mean, one of my goals over the offseason was to add depth because we had issues with that last year. So now we have 10 guys. I mean, we probably won't at any event this year because Yosh is missing the next one, and and hopefully Blake comes back. But yeah.
You guys you're sitting as the admiral with a pretty stout boat that has a bunch of glass cannons on it because they go bang really, really loud. But at any point in time, it could be a crack in the foundation. But it is smart though, because yes, Yoshi's about to have his first child. Got to take some time for that. And hopefully, knock on wood, everything goes well there. Looking forward to seeing that baby. And he's been doing this forever, so he's gonna have to take a little bit of a seat. So I asked Ryan this, and I didn't get an answer. Do we know? And Ryan, we started talking about a billion things. This is no knock on you. I know you're not trying to dodge this question, but do we have an estimated time for Blake to be back?
I'm not sure. He said he could play the next event, but I mean, honestly, it depends on how his tendons heal. Because I think he took his pens out before the event, but his tendons have to be he has to do physical therapy to make sure he's got all, or at least some motion back in his finger and his nerves. Yeah.
Oh, so he has no feeling.
So I don't know
currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got no feeling up here, but the tendons are really, really tight, and he does have to do physical therapy for that. The doctor did say, however, in 4 to 6 weeks from the Florida event, which puts us the timetable puts us directly at the Dallas event. I know this show is not live. And so depending on what the NXL's rules or whatever they release for how they're going to do the Challengers Cup and all this stuff like that, is also going to determine whether or not Dynasty goes to play in that event. So, hopefully we do, but it may not be necessary. And from a budget standpoint, we got to decide what's the best move for the team. Do we want to focus on the Philly event with better practices, because we'd like to do some travel practices as well, maybe going down to the San Antonio or going out to Level. And so there's a lot of options on the table for Dynasty's practices. And so, that money can be spent on something that could benefit the team a little bit more, because technically, depending on, again, what the rules are, we're already in the final round of the Challengers Cup, or the semifinal round. We get that first round bye for winning an event. So it will be up in the air. And that also gives time for Blake to fully heal, rather than being okay. Yeah. And right before this point, I'm going to take this bandage off because it's been 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, just so everyone knows, so the Dallas event so we have the majors, and then this is an open, but I've been hearing that there may be upwards of potentially 15 of the 20 pro teams at this open event, which would be a huge turnout and make it really fun to watch. I mean, it's funny because, Blake's been great for a long time, but he just kept getting better and better. But to see him perform at that Sacramento Open with the Gummy Bears / the ASG All-Stars, and then also Urena was a huge standout there as well, too, because he was playing out of position. So was Blake. To see them, being kind of coaching and doing all this extra stuff, and to see how well they played. And that was really cool. So there are kind of cool stories that happen at these open events so far. But if we get a huge turnout, it would, even if you guys aren't there, if whoever else isn't there, maybe some of the top teams, but I don't really exactly know. This is obviously still evolving. Like you said, you guys don't even know if you're going to go yet. So, but that one is going to be at the end of April, beginning of May 29th to May 1st. And then that's the open. The next major, we already have the brackets for that, obviously. So I would like to get your thoughts on that before we sign off. We're not going to sign off for a little bit, but so, just kind of put that in your head. But it is kind of interesting. So as it stands right now, if you had to give it a percentage, what percentage chance do you think that we will see you guys in Dallas?
Exactly. 50-50.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was hoping that Kevin was going to take the reins on that one. I'd say 50-50.
No, you guys were supposed to tell me.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm telling you right now, 50-50. We should know this weekend. we should have an idea this weekend.
Okay. And then so if Blake does come in, I mean, well, Kevin, are you, because you've been really, and I appreciate this, and there's other teams that are kind of in this same boat now, as the guys are getting a little bit long in the tooth again, still, as razor sharp as they can get, but the way you've been running practices and kind of working with who you have, and sometimes shut a practice down a little bit earlier, just, so are you just going to kind of ride on Blake's timetable and ask him, or will you intentionally keep him off the field even if he thinks he's ready, or will you just go, based on what the doctor says? I mean, kind of how do you feel you're going to handle that?
Well, I mean, because I mean, he probably could have played this last event, but I was like, no, don't do that, because if he hurts it anymore, especially the fact that we're missing Yost the next event, I was like, dude, we have 9 guys, we're going to be fine, and I need you more the next event than this first event. So really, that was my theory. And then I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I have no idea. It's really up to him, but he needs to show it too, and he needs to practice. So yeah.
So let's just Kevin, I'd like to get your thoughts on the trajectory of the team, again, undefeated run through this first event. You guys were in the bracket of death, and then at first when that bracket came out, it didn't look like it would necessarily be the bracket of death, but the stronger the Saints got, the more scary that bracket got, just because the last ranked team on paper ended up being, 4 guys, like 2 of the starters from Ironman and who were good, and then 4 guys from Impact. And then X Factor ended up being, the odd team out there, or one of the odd teams out, and they actually ended up taking 16th place. It was the first time X Factor hasn't made a Sunday in, I think, 7 years, maybe 8. And it was a nasty bracket. What were your thoughts on that now that it's kind of over?
Well, I mean, it's good and bad. It's good because we get to play harder teams to start, so we're not gonna be able to screw around at all. We're not gonna have an easy game, and it's good and bad. It's we're ready for Sunday right away. So in that way, it didn't bother me at all. In another way, I thought we won the series, we'd have the easy cake bracket, and that was not the case at all. So, because I feel we never do. So I don't know what's going on, but yeah.
No, I feel you guys don't really have cake brackets that often. But you guys had a really tough one against Revo. Revo was, it was interesting. Maybe we could just talk about Revo a little bit before we move on, since they were in your bracket and you guys did play them. I feel that it is still a pretty interesting story. In professional paintball, they did lose a bunch of guys. I like the guys they picked up though. And then they had not the best not the best record in the bracket of death. They went 1-3. They lost, but every single one of those games was super close. Overall, their plus minus, it was 18 points for and 19 against. So even though they took 11th and barely missed Sunday in that bracket of death, they went through the bracket of death and only went -1. I mean, that's pretty good, considering that they just essentially lost.
Weren't those matches overtime too? The ones they
yeah,
lost?
They had
they were all overtime.
Yeah, I'd have to go a little bit deeper into my notes, but yeah, they had a ton of overtime games. Yeah, your guys. Yeah, well, your guys' game was OT. The X Factor game was OT. And then in the afternoon, I'd have to look a little bit further. But yeah, they had some overtime games. But to lose 3 starters, and I was saying 4 starters, but then Henry Sense was like, "We didn't lose 4 starters. Who are the 4?" And I named them off. He's like, Dan Zaleski wasn't a starter. I'm like, dude, he's one of your core guys going back for years. And he's like, well, okay, yeah. So they basically lost 4 of their core guys, and then still were competent enough to only go and end up with a -1. Barely lost to you guys by 1, lost to X Factor by 1, beat Energy Elite by 2, and then lost to the Saints by 1. That's not a bad showing. I still feel that team's going to be relevant at some point in time if they work hard. I mean, based on what we saw, I mean, what are your thoughts? Ryan, we'll start with you. What do you think about Revo right now?
Yeah, and they've always been that team where they're just kind of bootstrapped up with the skeleton crew of guys, and it's great to see that now that the depth is being tapped into quite a bit more. It's awesome to see them do as well as they were. And that was kind of the motto for the event, right? There were a lot of 1-point games. There were a lot of overtime, like just barely squeaking by. And that was kind of like how that field was, is you're either going to get a blowout or you're going to get a really tight game. It depends on if you're hitting your shots or making your moves correctly out there. And so, to see those guys, I mean, I think they're still going to be contenders. I didn't think they were going to be, bad anyway.
Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. I think they're like a top 10 team. Like obviously they have some new guys, but they're always really difficult for us to play against, like in particular for some reason. They always seem to play us really well, and then they'll play some other team and lose 7-0, and I'm like, what the heck? Like they never do this to us. So, and Energy is the same way. They're exactly the same way because they play us super tough, and I'm like, I don't know why. I guess it's like, they bring out their best games for the team that they think is best. So maybe that's good. I don't know.
It's just it's to me plus minus. Okay, we have the standings, right? But who did you lose to? How did you lose? And then through the entire length of the tournament, how close was it on the points? That's one of the things I look at. Obviously there's a lot to it, but the story that's painted by some of those plus minuses, and it's not always perfect, but and I was talking to Ryan about this. So the Saints ended up taking second place. As you guys well know, you played them. You actually beat the Saints twice at this event, which was a cool story for Dynasty. You guys beat them by 5 in the second game in the prelims, and then you beat them in the finals by 3. But they're plus minus because, new team getting together, they were letting the Latin line get some spins. They actually did not do bad. Latin line looked pretty decent in the prelims. They didn't see the field much at all. I think at all actually on Sunday. But the Saints scrapped their way through all the way to the finals, but their kind of story was different. So they had 34 points for and 34 against for an even point spread. Beat Energy by 1, then lost you guys by 5. Beat X Factor by 3, lose to Rev, or then they beat Revo by 1, and then they had a series of close games and then lose to you guys by 3. So it was just kind of an interesting story. But I mean, I have to ask what you guys think about Saints now that you played them twice. That's going to potentially be a new rival for you guys. You guys are now 2-0 on them to start out the year. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Saints here? Obviously, Spick and Span, you got Kyle Spick on the Saints.
Shout out to the Spick and Span show right there.
Spick and Span show, baby.
This is gonna be the new studio soon as we kind of clear some space out. But it's cool. Kyle's doing really well out there, and he's moving into that support role position. But they got a lot of offense. They've got a lot of offensive weapons, and that makes them a scary team. Plus, they've got a lot of brains on the team as well. So that means that the Latin line is only going to get better. And so what's going to happen is, what's going to be a trick is if Brandon starts to mix the lines, right? That's where it's going to give the guys a little bit more longevity. Not like Mouse is getting tired at all. It didn't seem. Neither did Silos at that point. So, I mean, those guys, as long as they have the stamina to continuously push forward and keep that offense on full throttle, then that's going to make them a very scary team. And then once the Latin guys kind of get up and running, and like you said, they played really well. I think they were the only ones to score points against Revo or something like that. Or then, they won the first 2 points against Revo for the team. So yeah, I mean, and I've seen like a lot of those Latin guys around for a long time, and a handful of them have been coached, in clinics and stuff like that throughout the years in Latin America. And so they're just getting the best masterclass that you can get, or one of the best. Obviously, sign up for Ryan Greenspan clinic somewhere. You're going to get a really good masterclass also, or any of the other Dynasty guys. You've got Kyle's super talented in explaining and teaching, and so is J-Rab. He's a master at that also. And then you got A-Rod's mind, going a million miles a minute, but there's a lot of great information in there, right? Floating around between all those guys that are on the team. You got Corey Hall, Silos, Mouse. And so those Latin guys are only going to get better. And so that's a scary thing. That's definitely, because once you can start relying on them, just like you can lean on the other guys. That's going to be
no, I totally agree. But Kevin, I want to throw this question to you just because this is your ballpark, because you're a coach and you've been a coach for a long time. But one of the big changes that they made was that they didn't have, so they had Corey as the attacker on the D side. And with the way that side was playing out, which, I mean, and the Corey did not play bad over there, but they needed a little bit more of a punch on that side. And because the teams that were relevant in that, what we were calling the V, some people were calling the castle, whatever, it had a bunch of different names depending on the teams. But that middle 50-yard line structure over there, teams that were, up in that spot more often than not were winning points. And it looked like they identified that on day one, where they lost to you guys by 5. And one of the reasons they lost is they were kind of grinding their gears on offense a bit, not just over there. But one of the things that they did was then they went to Silos on that side. So, Kevin, this is what I throw that question to you. I mean, that's a hard call there for Brandon to make. So they're one of the big questions with Saints. We all know that Brandon Short is a Hall of Fame paintball player. Just help you guys win the World Cup. Brandon Short's an elite, one of the best ever snake players to play the game. And he knows the game really well, but and he's been coaching, but to step into this situation where you have all of these superstars, there's a lot of money being spent. There's a lot of expectations. He's got to mix in the Latin guys too, but to make a call like that on the fly, and then to change up your personnel. I mean, what do you think was going on in his head, SK?
Well, I mean, it was obviously the right call because Silos played better than anyone on that team. Like on Sunday,
yeah, Silos was the lights out.
Like he was playing awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that team also got better as the event went on. So just because like they're still getting used to each other. I mean, I know some of them have played together, but like it's different when it's like 2 guys or if it's 5 guys. It's all these different things. And I know that Short got in trouble too because the Latin line yelled at him after the first day of not playing him enough because they won like not all their points, but the majority of them. And so they were
won
like,
a lot of
in the meeting that like Friday night that Short told me, he's like, what do I do? I was like, I don't know, man. Play it more. So yeah, I mean, replacing players, it's just, it's not replacing it. Like, I'm sure Silos, Corey, and Kyle all played in there in practice. So it really just depends on how they did at practice. And then you can kind of gauge it from there, I think. I mean, I assume they all played over there. I don't know. So
yeah, and then you play to the hot hand, and that was
no, yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
Be like, all right. Yeah. Sorry. So like play to the hot hand. Like we'd play Dalton every point if we could physically, but we just got to throw Alex in there because he helps pay the bills. So we understand like obviously where Brandon Short's coming from there, and like. But it also gives Dalton his legs a little bit of a rest, So you put Alex over there, so it kind of serves both purposes. But the same kind of concept is like you put your hot hand in, and if Dalton can play every single point, then we just we put Alex over on the snake side or something like that, a couple points.
we didn't do that though.
No, you didn't need to because everything worked out really good for you guys.
Yeah, I switched Alex, like Yosh and Arturo played together, and they switched off every other point, and then Dalton and Alex played together, like by the end of Sunday. That's how it worked.
Oh, might have lost Ryan for a second. No, it was. Oh, we might have lost Ryan.
Yeah.
So, which is fine, but no, it was interesting because he was talking about riding the hot hand, but Silos didn't really see the field a ton, so maybe it was the hot hand in practice. And when I said Silos didn't see the field a ton on day one, he saw it a little bit, but Corey was more the guy over there. But I think
right.
You and I both, I love Corey and you love Corey on his back.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it was kind of I thought the correct play call just because, and it ended up being the right move because that side of the field needs somebody that's reckless, and Silos is reckless. Corey, he can play offense, but he's a little bit more cerebral. Like he got paintball famous by pulling off low body situations, being a good 2. He can be the 1. Silos is a more pure 1. And maybe you could ride them together, but I don't know. It was definitely the right call. Silos was lights out over there for them. He continues to impress. But that team's deep. It's going to be fun to watch the Saints develop. And it is going to be interesting to see that out of that Latin line. So who are the Latin stars, right? Like who are going to be the guys?
Yeah.
We saw a couple glimpses out of a couple guys, but there wasn't really enough spins for us to, okay, it's definitely this guy or it's definitely that guy. They still have something to prove. But some of those guys were out there playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. Another team we got to talk about that's becoming a huge story now is Columbus Level. You know, they're sitting at third place overall right now, which is amazing. You know, we talked about inspirational things that are happening. You know, obviously with the elder statesmen and the old gentlemen that we have that are your glass cannons on your roster here, SK, like Ryan Greenspan here, our MVP. You know, so that's an inspiration, because if you're out there and you're 30 years old and you haven't quite made it as a paintball player yet to your dreams, it's still possible. You know, I mean, you can play this game. It's like some of the best mixed martial arts fighters they don't get to their elite status until they're a little bit older, because there's a lot of things that you have to master. But with Level, that's an interesting and I think inspiring story too. That's a group of guys that have stuck together. They were on the precipice of potentially getting relegated midway through last season. They beat Heat in their last game at the second event as kind of a glimmer of hope. We're like, oh, wait, where did that come from? And then they roll into the third event, and all of a sudden, incredibly impressive. They make it to Sunday. They don't make Sunday at Cup. So then heading into this year, we're like, okay, well, is this going to be like an Uprising type story where they're super inconsistent and go out one tournament and look really good and then look terrible in another tournament, and they can beat top teams sometimes, but not on a frequent basis to be, you know, a contender? But it looks like Level might be a legit contender. Ryan, we'll start with you. What do you think?
Yeah, you know, and you know, picking it up from the last season, definitely kind of keeping that strength and momentum going forward, and they've definitely, you know, Pando has put together a really solid program for those guys, and Robbie is doing a fantastic job as well. So, you know, with a mix of offense and control, like they were playing a lot more controlled paintball at this one. So that's something that you need to like be able to see out of teams if you want them to kind of get to that next level. And yeah, I mean, hopefully they can keep it going, because again, it's great to see that little shakeup at the top. You know, it's funny, I was walking out right before the before the semifinals, and it was 3 new teams and us. So I walked by Bart, and Bart kind of shook his head, and he's like, "You got to win this, man. Like, we can't let these new guys to get a win." You know, because we were going in to play Aftermath, and then it was Level and the Saints. So you know, we're just still trying to fight to keep on top, and it's tough. It's tough to stay up here for sure. Especially like you said, you mentioned about the younger players, like and guys who have more access to paintball fields. Like, we don't. Some of the guys on the team, but for the most part, we don't have access to fields that we could practice at regularly. You know, it's not like that's the crazy thing about our success, to be completely honest.
Yeah, is that, well, I mean, you guys do have to travel to your Columbus Level has a great field. What Pando's done with his field is amazing, and they can get their grind on. But the only way to try to catch the level of experience that you guys have is to spend that much time training and have, well, not the only way, but it makes it a little bit easier when it's close and you can go, because people ask me all the time, like, how are we supposed to catch Dynasty? Like, Ryan's had, you know, 20 something years to get as good as he is, you know, and just include everyone else into that same paradigm as far as time is concerned. Like, how do we catch those guys if if we don't even start as talented as they are? I've heard this sometimes from people, and I'm like, okay, first of all, full stop. Ryan Greenspan, and I've used you as an example for him, like, he did not come out of the womb a championship paintball player. You know, you had to grind in your teenage years to try to seek fun stories and adventures, because you're an adventurous dude. All you guys are. And you sought out those trials and prevailed, and then grew confidence, you know. So, you know, first of all, having the bravery to go seek trials out and not just stomp on your local teams is the first requirement that needed for this adventure. But then also, how do you catch them? Okay, well, you to clock in and do more work, man. When we had excessive and we were trying to catch you guys, we started training in the middle of the week, because, you know, that was what we needed to do in order to be that good. I mean, we've said it. Here's how good. Here's the level. If this is how good you need to be in the top 4, and you have to train 365 days a year to be this good, or you can show up hungover and you go out and shoot everyone, this is still the level. It doesn't matter. This is where it's at right here. This is what you need to do. So yeah, it sucks as a leader, but if you have the dude who's argumentative, but he shows, and who's a tough teammate to have around, maybe he won't stay around for a long time, but I'm gonna have a hard time sitting this dude if he's showing up hungover and shooting 3 dudes every point he plays. You know, so it's like this, it doesn't, whatever you have to do to get to be that good. And Level has trained their asses off, and they've sought out challenges and flown to play good teams. And so it's just kind of, it's really impressive and inspiring, the fact that they're now sitting at third place, so early in their pro careers. I mean, dude, they went undefeated in the prelims, and they had some close games. They went to war. You know, they beat DMG by 2. They beat Tampa Bay Damage, who was hungry to get back to elite status, by 1. They beat the brakes off the Ironman 6-0, and then they beat Infamous by 1, and then they beat Legion in the quarterfinals. And Legion has their starting 5 back. You know, so, and then they lose to the Saints by 2. That's legit, dude. Their plus minus was +9, 32 points for and 23 against. Like that's a really damn good showing for the first event, coming out of place that's winter locked too. You know, it's not like they have, you know, the blessings of a Southern California or a Florida or a Texas, you know, even though Texas gets cold as hell in the winter, but still, you know, like the fact they're this good this early on, and also getting, it's not just a starting 5, it's like 7-ish guys that play most of the time. I don't know, Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, I think that they did exactly what you said. They went to play Damage. They went to play different teams, and they're not afraid to lose like every point. It doesn't matter. Like that's how you're gonna get better. Like you're not gonna get better by playing your, you know, Division I team. You're just not. So I mean, and I think really it's their whole team changed like the last match in Philly. I watched them beat Heat, and then I think it was Heat. And since then, the teams played with confidence. And even at World Cup, I think they barely missed the Sunday. I think like an overtime point or something. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't
World
surprise
Cup,
me at all.
just real quick, at World Cup level went 2-2, and ended up taking 12th. So it wasn't not a crazy blowout. But it was one of those things where they lost to their, you know, Damage and Impact, but they lost Impact by 6, and that doomed them because they beat Energis World Cup. Talking about,
Matty, one thing about the success side of things that Kevin did, and you guys both touched on, is like, you know, obviously you want to try to punch up, you want to like play above your weight class, so that way you can kind of like get that experience, and that's what we did when we were kids. But I think that one of the biggest things, and one of the biggest, and for whoever needs to hear this, that's listening to this and watching this, that's trying to aspire to become a better player.
He's in the garage, dude. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know.
The new Spick and Span studio. He had to do some readjustment stuff today.
Pulling on cables right now. So.
Yeah, no, he's texting me right now. He's just great. So I don't know if we'll get Ryan back, but yeah, I mean, I think he was just probably going down the same, just obvious road that we've been talking about. Oh, he's back.
Oh, there he is.
I think you need to work on some connectivity issues down there, Ryan, if that's going to be the new studio location.
You know, the Nest, we got one more mesh system that's going to really actually literally mesh everything together that is kind of not here yet. So that's why this is the preliminary run of what the Spick and Span studios will have in the coming months, weeks. But anyway, no,
you're technically proficient.
We got some upgrades that are coming. All right, so don't worry about it.
Right.
Maybe Go Sports' connection, I think, is what I'm pulling out.
You're the only one dropping out.
before I drop this knowledge bomb, like I get cut off. You know, one of the things that whoever needs to hear this needs to understand is the losing aspect of it. Like, you need to lose. I've won a lot, but I've lost way more than I've won, and a lot of people can't deal with that. And then that's when they're like, I need to go play against some D3 guys or D4 guys or something. I need to win. And I've seen a lot of teams and stuff like that. I think I was in St. Louis, and guys didn't want to come and train against it like at one of the clinics because they wanted to be like playing. They wanted to win. They wanted to play against their local team instead, because that's how they think they're going to get better. And you know, it's kind of sad a little bit, because there is that wall that people hit where they're just like, I don't want to lose, right? Like, my ego just can't take learning is what it ends up being. Like, I don't want to learn. Like, when you're actually taking in knowledge and learning, you're doing schoolwork, whatever it is. Math is a great example. Like, most math problems are extremely difficult. You have to work through them. You can't just be like, I don't really want to learn how to do this, so I'm just going to stick to the simple addition with all the numbers under 10. Just 2 digits. Like, that's where I'm going to stick. I don't need a multiplication. Like, who uses that? And, you know, that's the whole thing, is like, people complain about that in school even, you know, it's like, what am I going to ever use this in the real life? It's being able to work through problems is what you're learning, you know? And so that in paintball is incredibly necessary. You have to get beat. You have to lose. Not the tournaments, it's not good to lose, but
No,
But
okay, but again,
I think Ryan's
yeah.
100%
No, go ahead.
right. This is what bothers me so much about like younger players. They'll be like, "Oh, what are you?" Like, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm a snake player." I'm like, "No, you're not. You're just a paintball player, and you got to figure out what's best for your team." If you no, like seriously, this happened with Ryan. Like this event, he came over, and I was like, "We're not doing it right in the center yet." Like we tried for two weekends, and he came over to my house where we went to lunch or whatever, and then he was like, "I was like." He's like, "Fine, I'll do it," and I was like, "All right, done." Like now you're the center guy. So, yeah. So
Kevin, I don't want to do it, but I'll do it. I guess.
That is the way.
yeah, exactly. But no one else will do it. I'll do it. Like So, but yeah, I mean, like, I'm trying to make all our players be able to play everywhere. Like, and it's so helpful. Like, you just play the snake all the time. How do you know what it's like when you're the center guy and the snake guy gets up to the 50? Like it's so simple. Like, and people don't do it. They just keep playing the same spots, and it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Well, just real quick, because a couple more questions before I let you guys go. But on that same motif of knowing of the, it's that cliche. Okay, if we're losing, we're learning. Hell yeah, dude. Like, that's how it works. And if you can't deal with that mentally, you're probably never going to be good at anything, to be honest. Like, I don't care what it is. Really. I mean, if you want to get bigger, you have to lift weights. You literally, in order. Well, no, but it doesn't matter what it may be. Just pick your metaphor, dude. Pick your metaphor. You want to get jacked? Well, guess what you have to do? You have to destroy your muscle fibers using repetition of gravity and weight so that they will rebuild themselves stronger. You want to be a better paintball player? You need to go get smashed by people that are better than you. So you're forced to figure it out or stay at the same level or quit, like this. And if you want to go play for fun, that's totally fine. But if your quest is to be really good at this, whatever division you may be, and to hold the trophy, to be the best, when you're all said and done, your knees are shot, you can look back and be like, we get it. That you didn't have that fear of failure, because the failure is so crucial. I love baseball. I love golf. I love paintball. All these things are very difficult because you lose a lot more than you win, man. It's so hard to deal with that mentally. And I think that your guys' story most recently is so perfectly an example of this. Starting at last year, you guys come off a World Cup win. You go into the first event. You guys were absolutely terrible in the prelims. You barely make Sunday. You take 10th place, and then you guys lose Tyler, one of your longtime 9-year guy, all-star dude. So now you've taken a 10th place and you lose one of your stars. What happens after this? Third, first. And now we're talking about you guys setting history into the books again. That's responding to a cataclysm the way that you can look back at it when it's all said and done and be like, hell yeah, dude. When shit got real, we didn't fold. We mentally got stronger instead of, succumbing to the intensity of the moment. And so one of the questions I wanted to throw to you guys, because when Archie left X Factor, I was like, man, and we talked about this on the show, and I use that as an example. I'm like, look what happened to Dynasty when they lost Tyler. They refocused. They have a lot of talent on that team, and and they ended up cascading off into this amazing rosy sunset the past, what they've earned. But it's a really cool story. And I thought that X Factor would rise to the occasion. Those guys would have something to prove now that they've lost, their superstar. And I'm kind of shocked, to be honest, that they ended up taking 16th place. I think that they are going to respond well to this because they've got a lot of mentally tough people on that team. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you guys. I think one of the biggest stories is that you guys, and they're your rivals. I mean, you just fought them in the finals 3 times in the past year and a half. So I would not be doing my job if I didn't ask you guys what is definitely one of the most compelling stories of pro paintball right now is like, what does X Factor do moving forward here in 2022? Now they're sitting at 16th place, which is, and their first Sunday they've missed. And again, there's kids walking around that are in like 2nd grade that have never seen X Factor miss a Sunday. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think just the question in and of itself kind of like answers itself, right? Obviously they're going to bounce back. I wholeheartedly agree with that. There is something to say, like with it's not like the team's going to break up, right? And I doubt they're going to go in a rut. And so when you take a great team a historically great team and you challenge them like they did, it makes a lot of those guys want to play harder. It's not like they're going to go, all right, maybe we schedule a practice against one of the other 16th place teams or 18th, 20th place teams. So that way we get a little bit more confidence boost. I mean, if you want a confidence boost, just go play walk-ons, but you schedule and you work harder, you train harder, and you go out there. I'm playing walk-ons this weekend too. Just going to make sure that still got it.
Yeah.
Stick the broadsword out to people and just start cutting heads off.
But that's the mentality, right? Is you get like you said, we lost Tyler. We had injuries. Things were not looking fantastic for Dynasty going into the next event. And we have guys step up. Mikey had arguably one of his best events of his career in Philly last year. I think personally that we would have gone further. I think we could have won that event. We had Alex hurt his leg, Dalton hurt his leg. We had 2 injuries. We were playing with 6 guys out there, and we literally looked over at Arturo, who just broken his hand, and he had a screw put in it 7 days prior to the event, and we're like, Arturo, you're playing the number 1 on the Dorito side. We have no more guys. I can't go over there. Marcelo can't physically play every single point, and he's doing a hell of a job where he is. So I think I was joking. I think I was joking with Skinny. I was like, "Hey, are you gonna suit up? Because they might need you to suit up because it's getting a little thin out here." And that was also Kevin's kind of epiphany. He's like, "Do we need to get a deeper roster? We have to get a deeper roster." So that those are the moments. That was the moment right there. And had we not lost Alex, who ended up coming to the next event and winning the Golden Barrel by a long shot, Dalton, who's always the best guy on the field at any given time, I think we would have gone further, right? We just needed a little bit of a bottle cap put on Fedorov at that event, and we win that tournament, And that match we did lose by 4, but we were starting to go at him pretty haphazardly at the end of that match. But we were down points, low on time, so the score doesn't entirely reflect how that match went. We were in it. We scored the first point, they scored the second, the third, we went to the fourth, and they were just it was a 1-point game until that little bit of a roll they got on towards the last couple of points. But again, we're playing with 6 guys. One of them has screws holding his hand together, which is an incredibly important part to be running and diving on that type of turf, that ground.
Arturo's a warrior, bro. That dude is a warrior.
Yeah, and I mean, all the guys stepped up, and that's what we have on the team is we have a lot of guys that can step up. And now with Archie, Marcelo on the field playing anywhere, good luck, finding out what we're gonna do, where we're gonna go. You got Marcelo running to the snake. We got Mikey doing that. We got Arturo that can play in any position that he showed us this weekend and play it well. And then obviously Alex is gonna get some points inevitably. And then and Yosh had a fantastic event playing out there. As the number 2 on that Dorito side. So we've got a very deep roster that Kevin has managed to put together, and we've got guys that are all of them are all ready and willing to step up to the challenge. Oh, and then I forgot about Blake. We got Blake too.
And Damien.
Yep.
And Damien, dude, what's going on? Salsa lessons.
Yeah. That's why we have 10.
Yeah.
So the last
did I answer the
point
question?
Of conversation? Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, the show's about tangents, and I just let you go, baby. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna go on a roll. I'm just gonna he's just going off right now. No, it's
That's me out.
I'm sorry. What was that? You broke up for a second. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
So I was watching Frozen with 4 TVs in the house.
So the last point of conversation before I let you guys go is, so Latin Saints come in and completely cleave the starting roster of Impact into pieces. They take 4 essentially of their starting guys. I mean, Impact's deep, and I remember talking to, and I've said this before, but I was talking to Dave kind of while that was happening, or right at kind of as it was kind of this news was breaking, and he wasn't pissed at all. I mean, he kind of knows how the game is played, and he wasn't pissed at the dudes. He wasn't like, I can't believe these guys would betray us this way, or that, I can't believe they'd leave after all we did for us, or all we did for them, that sort of thing. He was more like, she tried to do his due diligence to keep the guys and couldn't do it because, Diego's throwing a king's ransom at him, and God bless Diego for being able to do that. But one of the big stories coming into this year was, what was Edmonton Impact going to look like? And they actually looked pretty damn good. I mean, they went undefeated in the prelims. Their plus minus was pretty nasty. 31 points for and 18 against, plus 13. They mercy ruled AC Diesel. They barely beat the Hurricanes on day one, so that was kind of interesting story. But then they mercy rule Uprising, and then they beat Legion by 1, and then they only lose to the Saints, which was an interesting grudge match, but they only lose by 1. So, you know, with the new pickups that they have, I like Zach Hill, Jarula, and Zupa from Revo, and then, you know, Axel Godin. He's always been nasty in the Snake. So they picked up 4 new bodies. You know, I mean, we could spend another 30 minutes talking about how they played and all that sort of stuff, but I got to get your opinion on this because it is going to be their 5th overall, but that new roster is pretty lethal, man. I really think that they could make a legit run this year, and you might be seeing, it would be surprise absolutely nobody if you guys see Aftermath in the finals at some point, maybe even at the next event. Kevin, what are your thoughts on Impact right now?
Well, I mean, they beat us up at practice the weekend before the event, so I knew they were going to be fine. Like, I mean, and the one they lost, who did they lose to? Aftermath, and it was like 8-7 or something.
The only game that Impact lost to was to the Saints, and it was by 1. It was 5 to 6.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that was like a really close game too. So I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to be just fine. I mean, like, they had an easy bracket though, so that makes it harder on Sunday when you have an easier bracket on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, in their bracket, just so everyone if remembers, it was Impact, Legion, Diesel, Uprising, Hurricanes. That was their bracket. So yeah, that wasn't your guys' bracket. That was one of the easier brackets because
right.
Diesel did not look that great, man. Diesel was a -7. They lost 3 games. They beat up the Hurricanes in their last game, but they looked mortal. Uprising looked mortal. The Hurricanes had a cool showing for their first event, but that is a semi-pro team moving up to pro. We'll have one of the Hurricanes on at some point in time. I want to pick their brains. It was a really cool showing, but yeah, that was not the hardest bracket out there. And then Impact for the major will be, it's Aftermath, Impact, Thunder, Hurricanes again, and the New York Extreme. So again, not the hardest bracket, but yeah, I don't know. Ryan, what do you think
about Impact? I think they're gonna be fine.
Yeah, just in general.
I love that conversation that you had with Dave, and obviously I have inside information because of Kyle. You know, and I've spent some time with Bart and Maui. So you know, I know those guys really well, and I know the organization kind of runs. And dude, Bart was happy for those guys, right? He's not gonna hold a grudge. He understands business, and he understands the money that can to change these lives. And so he was not upset at any of the guys. It wasn't like, oh, you stabbed us in the back. I can't believe you're gonna leave. It's like, dude, good for you, man. And the other thing is you can't it's not like you can be surprised that a mercenary took money, right? Like let's face it, those guys have played on plenty of other teams and for all intents and purposes, like we don't have any mercenaries on our team, right? Like the guys that are on our team, because we don't pay very well. It was one of the reasons. But you play on Dynasty because you want to play on Dynasty. Or you play on Dynasty as like a rookie or a lower undercard, so you get really good, you get some notoriety, and then we don't sell you off. You just go get the big payday. Dalton's done that like 3 times to us, But you know, it's like that. So you play. We're like the A's. You play for a future contract, in that sense. But yeah. So I don't know much about baseball. I didn't see that one movie.
No, two of them just did.
Fine because they've got the funding. Yeah, they've got the funding to be able to bounce back on their feet, and they're just like, okay, crap. Like, what do we do? Let's get to the drawing board. We can't sulk over this. And it's the same thing when we lost Tyler. It was like, dude, man, that was like such a lousy thing. But what are we gonna do? We're gonna make sure we're better. And you know, with or without you. And we got it. You can't like whatever cry over spilled milk or whatever you want to call it, but like. They immediately were like, okay, let's. I'm sure they put a little war board out, and we're like, okay, who do we want to get? Let's get these guys done. Make the call. And I think Axel was a great pickup. And I talked to Bart about that, and he was like, he was like just randomly like, oh wow, yeah, he's that we can do that. You know,
Yeah, no, that was kind of I mean, I don't know who put the the little birdie in whoever's ear that was. I mean, when I had talked to Dave, he's like, we're gonna go after Axel, and I was like, oh, that's genius. But the one thing with Axel though, because look, Mike Zupa and Matt Drula coming off of Revo, we saw again they were part of the core that made Revo so potent, and that was okay. Everyone saw how good that Zupa has a snake attacker. Drula, he'd been with Damage before. Zupa's been around since the CEP days. Both those guys are nasty. Those were, I wouldn't say no brainers, but for people in the know, like absolutely, yeah. They're not the quote unquote like superstar guys, like the Saints were kind of going after, more name guys. But anyone that's been watching any sort of paintball, if you're not just a casual fan, everyone knows that those two guys are lethal. And then Zach Hill, same situation there. That he's a blue collar baller from the Midwest. Great attitude. He's that dude is a killer, and he had some good spins for him out there as well this past weekend. But then with Axel, even though as far as all those guys, I've seen Axel play at an elite level more than any of those dudes, even though we've seen all those dudes for now the past couple seasons. But Axel played on the Russians, he played on the Tauntauns. When Axel's on, he's unstoppable. I mean, he's been around for over a decade. But I just, because of COVID and the fact that he was on the Tauntauns for a while, I just didn't know where he was in his game. I mean, it's just has he been playing? Where was he at? Was he sharp? So that was kind of a little bit of a question mark. But he had some good spins, and I think he's only gonna coalesce a little bit more with those dudes. And but yeah, I think that all four of those pickups were huge. And then if you're playing Impact right now and you can't stop JC on the D side, you're gonna have issues. Like JC going back and creating 4 Sundays,
he's really
rewatching.
Good,
dude, he's so good. He's been so good for so long. I really truly feel he's still underrated because, I do talk to casual fans, people don't understand how ridiculously sharp and lethal that dude is. And so, yeah, if you play Impact and you can't stop JC on the D side, you're going to have it's going to be a rough game.
And Brandon Cornell, he's just played with injuries. Mm-hmm. He's a superstar player over there also, like it's so hard. It's so easy. And I think the reason for like not a lot of people knowing who JC is or not, I mean, that's not even the right way to put it, but it's just because you're on a team with a bunch of superstars, like who's getting the limelight. You got A-Rod running around in the middle, doing circles. You got Mouse on the team. So if you're on a team with Mouse, like that's where the spotlight goes, because that's where he won the MVP for him in the first event last year. So like that's where the focus is. And then you got quiet Justin over there just handling people on the Dorito side, and it's just like he's like that little and he hadn't played paintball forever. In Ace Ventura 2, when Nature, like it's the second one, and Ace Ventura is in Africa, and he's got to go fight that little dude that's in the backpack. That's JC. What I'm talking about? They're like, oh. He's like, him? Like, yes, that's JC.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think they're going to be fine. A 5th place was pretty good for them to start out the season with the new roster. But when I was talking to a lot of people in this offseason, more kind of some hardcore fans, but some casual fans as well too. A lot of people like, oh my God, Saints, what a cool story. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a fascinating story, but what's going to happen to Impact? Like, how are they going to do? And so I feel that that's a very compelling story moving forward here in the season. So, man, thank you guys so much for joining us. Congratulations on this insane, ridiculous success.
Can we talk about one more thing, Matty?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Thing that made me mad. Okay.
Yes. Break it down for me.
NXL people, please listen to this. When you put 2 fields back to back, make one of the buzzers sound different than the other one. I get it. I understand there's cost things going on, but you can change the sound. Just change the sound on the pro field or the other field. I don't care. Just change it.
It should be a clown horn.
Or yes, that should be the clown horn. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say, what sound would it be? Can we have one be like the normal sound, and then like maybe like a boat horn? I mean, you're a captain, Ryan. So like the boat horn, and that's very distinctive. You'll never not know what that is, and it's super loud.
Or it could be an air horn. I've actually got the air horn queued up 4 p.m. Tuesdays in the Spick and Span show. I just push a little button on the thing.
You do. I remember the last time I was on.
Yeah.
But please take our suggestion. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Kevin, we should come to the NXL with a suggestion box and have one suggestion in it. and it'll
Yes,
be that
yeah,
one.
yeah,
And that's-
exactly. I'll make
Well, we gotta do
box for
something.
Speaking of this big-
Jason.
That was an
I'm
issue. But
serious,
yes,
it's
Ryan,
a
go ahead.
big deal.
I gotta run the post
Wait, hold
office before they shut
hold-
down. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
Because we did a big charity raise. We raised about $3,000. Gave it all to children's cancer research, and the winner, Derek Weigel, actually won a Signature Series Force, brand new in the box. And Island Designs from James from Island Designs donated it. So I got to get that in the mail for him today before the post office closes in about 20 minutes. So that's where Spick and Span Show bringing out the big guns.
Love that. Still, no, dude, congratulations on that's badass. Good for you to raise $3,000, and congratulations to the dude that won a Signature Series for us. That's a pretty nasty, really expensive prize to win.
Nasty,
so, yeah. Which Signature Series was it?
It was actually my gun from 2021. So it looks kind of like this one, but the gold version, the one I did from the Africa kind of lion version. So this is my 2022.
Yeah, I like that one that you made because it reminded me of the Billy Saransky 3 yellow lines back and forth. It was like an homage to that with like its own style, but with splash. I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, well, Ryan, we'll let you get going.
Cool.
Kevin. Yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for gracing us with your time. I do agree with that suggestion. We got to do something because having those two fields, I'm glad that the field's next to us so we can get the info on who's doing well in the semi-pro and the WNXL. But to have there be issues at the start gate, we got to fix that moving forward because that's definitely a problem. But yeah, 2 different sounds seems like a simple fix. Love that. And everyone out there,
this one's kind of like that.
Ooh.
Lines right there.
Yeah.
I actually have a surfboard matching that other design with the 3 lines across the middle in orange.
I just like that you still shoot autocockers every now and then. I respect the OG because
all the walk-ons on Sunday with I gotta get get something. I gotta dip my lenses.
All right, we're gonna sign off so I can let you go. But yeah, again, everyone else out there, thank you so much for joining us. We have another streamer showcase coming up, Call of Duty, April 9th, from brought to you by TransLabs, the Warzone streamer showcase. 4 Sundays is free on YouTube right now. Go check out all of the crazy stories from the 2021 season where Dynasty rises back up and the Dragon is resurgent yet again to become the best team in the world. And then we have the NXL Texas Open, again, April 29th through May 1st. That will be the next big event that we're going to here. So, yeah, lots going on. We're kicking the season off. I'm excited to get back after it. Kevin, thank you so much. Ryan, thank you so much. You guys are, you're doing it again, dude. It's just so impressive. So don't blow it. Let's set some history in the books. Still got it, bro. You still got it. Still got it.
Out there and don't blow it.
Don't blow it at the next event. 4 wins in a row. Yeah. Set in history. We'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much. See you guys next time. Peace.
Awesome.
To what would you give each moment in a day if you knew that you only get 4 unique and different days to shine? It is such an arbitrary number, 4, to be sure. But the parameters are set. You know the day of your execution or of your deliverance. This is a trial by combat. It's a day to define you, a day to test you, a day where all the torturous hours of training come together, where it's you, your gun, your preparation, your teammates, and your tenacity on display, dissected by your enemies, with your skill, your will to win weighed and measured. It is your chance to prove to the world that in this small slice of place and time, that you above all others are to be remembered, to be respected. In the sport of paintball, it will come down to Sunday, the holy day, where you get to earn your place in the game. And in 2021, you get 4 of these. So this is the story of many moments, but of 1 year of what happens on 4 Sundays.
Hard, they have to, they know it, right? Smart fucking paintball.
Malice is just saving the day again, and Malice gets a crossfield shot as well.
Guys couldn't make the corner like I was as consistent.
They get Konstantin Fedorov back. They have Todd Martinez as the coach. Randy Smith is intent on building a championship team.
I got the chills, and I was like, we're going to win this tournament.
Pressure's all on them because they're number 1 team. We're the 20th place team.
Level undefeated, the number 1 seed in their division.
They have everything to lose, and we have nothing to lose.
No one can touch Dynasty here. That was a complete masterclass.
go to bed dreaming you get to play Impact on Sunday and send them home. Then you dream you get to play Houston Heat. Who's the other Titan? Dynasty. There's no better feeling than going up against the big Titans.